In the top left-hand side, our blue Terran player from Team Liquid, this is Clem.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Wardicho. These two are good friends, but they are also bitter rivals, and they are so very different as well, like personality-wise and whatnot. Like Clem being a little bit more reserved, but in the game they are fairly similar. As we're gonna see, Reynor already kind of mixing things up, opening with a pull first, so looking to punish a CC on the low ground with no scout on the side of Clem. We'll see if Clem chooses to send an SCV or not to scout.
Yeah, I wonder how aggressive Reynor maybe thinks about being with this as well, beyond just the Lings. There is that possibility that maybe you see a couple sneaky roaches or so, right? And if out of all the Zergs, I feel like Reynor's one of the least likely to do something like that. But, you know, to be a world-class player, you've got to be able to sneak those things into best of fives. And yeah, sometimes on Curious Minds, short map, a few roaches, Clem, you know, even though you're like, well, why aren't you expecting roaches on Terra map? Well, because someone like Reynor will just play the macro game on this map a lot of the time anyway. And that's why then it can obviously work. So we'll see what the full commitment turns out to be. The SCV scout is coming, though. We'll be able to know that it is a pool first. And that's great because it lets Clem know just a little bit of what he should do with this Reaper.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is more likely than not try to stay back unless the Lings reveal themselves, or unless Reynor manages to trick the Reaper somehow into getting out to chase a couple of Lings while sneaking out another couple. But we'll know that there's only two out. So they will just tag this SCV, and then they'll have to go back to his own terrain as the Reaper is, they're trying to hide, and the SCV is trying to keep tabs, right? Because if they manage to hide to the side, then they know that the Reaper is going to be on the lookout. If they are corralled back into their main, the Reaper can actually just push out. And the Reaper is here, and they have been corralled. So amazing job there by Clem, keeping tabs on those Lings, because now Reynor still has to contend with the Reaper. But yeah, he doesn't get, you know, obviously an advantage from having the hatch first.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Just means that, yeah, Clem, like you say, just doesn't have to deal with the Lings across the map. And yeah, it was just a really cool little micro battle already in the early stages. That's the sort of level of StarCraft these two play against each other. We're not surprised by it. It's what we expect, and it's absolutely what we're getting right now.
Absolutely what we're getting. And now it's going to be about taking that third, right? If the Reaper had to stay back just by virtue of those Lings existing, by virtue of him knowing that the hatchery was later with the SCV, then this drone has a much easier time taking the third. Still, Reynor finds the space by pushing a Queen forward, using a creep tumor first in order to do that at the natural base expansion. So, you know, nothing is for free. This has been a favorable, tiny bit, but favorable no less, early game for Clem.
Yeah. Like it a lot, and just put himself in a good starting position, as you will see the Reaper just trying to find anything as well, right? Just looking for any opportunity here to be able to get in, maybe get a creep tumor. Just little bits of damage can go such a long way between these two, and they both know it as well. And they always play for absolutely every small margin they can possibly get against one another. So yeah, very fun to see. And these Hellions are going to try and sneak in. Link speed not done yet, but the Queens have put enough damage onto the Hellions that is not going to be an issue. And those are going to be some dead Hellions, unfortunately. One gets into the main base, but the Evo block as well. Really nothing allowed.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that the Evo block was warranted there, because it's a single Hellion. It's going to take so long to kill anything. It needs 3 shots onto a drone, right? If it was 2 Hellions that get in, even if the second one, if one of them dies in the process, if you output 2 shots to begin with, then you need just 1 more shot to close it off. But here, I guess there wasn't a Queen available there in the main, and Reynor thought, I'm going to have to walk the Queen back, so might as well just buy a little bit of time with the Evo block. Regardless, it is a very proactive early game here, as we see Clem going back to his bread and butter. We saw this in the series against Lambo every single game. He liked these Cloaked Banshees.
Oh, yeah. But Banshees are something that Clem just loves, because it can just offset that momentum early. It can give him something to harass with, put a little bit of a lead in play. Just allows him to get into a nice strong position, as these Hellions still lurking as well. Let's see where the Banshee wants to strike. No Spore yet in that third base. Obviously, Cloak isn't ready, but it just means that the Queen's being pulled away a little bit, gives the Banshee a chance to get in there without taking too much damage. Only turns into 1 drone as a new Queen spawns, so actually wasn't as dangerous as it initially seemed like it might be.
Yeah, and Reynor does not have a perimeter outside of 1 single Overlord outside of his main base, right? Like we've seen from other players. Like on the other side, he has a bunch of Overlord spread, but this just really speaks also to Clem's ability to make the game very messy in the early game. Like these Overlords would want to be a little bit more spread out, but they are just not. So the Banshee is going to have a little bit of a freer time moving across here, as now there is an Overlord here, and again, one in the dead airspace, but maybe Clem can work around those.
Yeah, just trying to pick up some damage, of course. Going for the Queens. Felt like he maybe could have grabbed himself a creep tumor there initially, but all good as he decides not to. Just goes to get himself a Queen in the end, so nice from the Banshees. Anything to essentially cut back the creep spread, right? Because anytime you're killing a Queen, you're stopping further creep tumors coming down, and it just helps that a little bit. It all adds up. Third CC coming out in a position with the map control Clem has. I don't think he's got any fear about putting that in location. He's very aware of what's going on. He's been informed throughout this game, and he's very much so playing like that is the case as well.
Yeah, Reynor with a lot of respect. Double spore in the main as well. So, I mean, these Banshees, yeah, they find a Queen here and there, but not really the drone damage that they would have liked to do. And that just really speaks to Reynor's prowess and his ability to position his units properly, to take that extra step to make that extra spore and so on. And his creep spread, meanwhile, has been ridiculous. So yeah, I would say after that Banshee opening, you know, kind of failed a little bit.
Kind of failed, but the strength of the Banshee opening is it's almost like it's so low commitment, it doesn't matter too much, right? You still got a Queen, you still have both the Banshees as well, and that can be useful later in the game. Controlling a certain area, so no lift on the depot. Mistake from Clem, and that's going to allow a bunch of Lings in. Does he have enough power over here to do much? Well, Queens are going to do a lot of the tanking, and that means you're not going to get a lot of the killing done that you really want to get done. So yeah, feeling pretty good about that for Reynor, who 8 SCVs already killed, SCVs pulled up the third base. This is a mega amounts of damage already going out.
Yeah, that is a lot indeed on the side of Reynor. Really nice run by there. Luckily for him, for Clem, the Banshees were back and being repaired, so they are able to answer and help out to clean things out in the natural base. And yeah, when I say fail from the Banshees, I don't mean like it was a monumental failure, just like those little advantages and things like, you know, it didn't go particularly in his favor as he would have hoped. Now Baneling's walking into the third base, and they're gonna find more SCVs by the looks of it, but not too many, just 4. For 2 or 3 Banelings is not the worst thing in the world, and this one will only connect onto 3 more, so 7 go down all day. Not ideal from Clem, but he manages to continue to keep up the pressure here with the next team going forward. There isn't much army, however, for Clem, so he has to find a way to reinforce this if he wants to keep applying pressure.
Yeah, it's tough to do much more over here. Now, he actually traded pretty well because Reynor kept sending units across the map. This small group of units has done okay. Reynor still sending counterattacks across. I'm just a bit worried that Clem has had to pull the SCVs off the mineral line a few times over. This time, Clem is going to get there. Doesn't lose too much this time around, so definitely improvements, but it just feels as though Clem's not making much progress. And now you've got Reynor halfway to 2-2. Clem building a couple libs, just wanting to, almost feels like he just wants to all in off this one set of upgrades. Probably no more SCVs or gases in this game. Just kind of wants to go for it, which puts a lot of pressure, and especially once 2-2 is done, it's hard to imagine much will go his way if Reynor has that upgrade lead. As one of Baneling finally connects. I was going to say the Banes got kind of trashed going into that mineral line, but they made something of it in the end. Good job.
Yeah, the tank will actually tank for once, and that will be good for the Marines to output maximum damage onto those Zerglings, as they are now forced to pick back up and try to retreat. But some Marines are kind of on the side, as well as this tank here that will now be dropped onto the low ground to siege, but there's not enough kind of like just other firing power, more firing power in the way of Marines to clear this number of links. Now, as they have to ring around the Rosie, the tank on the high ground is going to do a lot of work. And finally, they will get cleaned up. Now, this is the opportunity for Clem to continue to push across the map with those Liberators that you were talking about. But like you said, Wardy, this is not an ideal situation economically. For either player, though, I mean, Reynor only at 69 workers.
I think nice, gets 11 SCVs there. I think Reynor realizes, obviously, that Clem's pretty committed to doing damage. He's obviously chosen to kind of try and really focus on dealing damage himself. So he knows that comes with a lesser economy. And so far, looking good as Clem. A couple extra libs on the way, really trying to lock down these locations. Here comes Reynor, though. Clem gets off creep. That's going to be big for him. Is it going to be enough? He's losing the Liberators. These few Marines do clean up the Lings. There's one tank in the background, and these Marines will chase forward for some Queens as well. A couple of Banes left over, though, and Clem probably still just has to get out of here. Man, this is just back and forth already.
Yeah, he really wants the extra 1 or 2 Baneling. It's the crazy thing about Clem. It's like, can I get one more? Can I get one more? It's like, just load up, man. That's so scary. But he knows the limitations. I mean, that is why he is so good. So, yeah, I mean, this game is crazy, even in spite of everything that has happened. Reynor has had opportunities and has found openings to do a little bit of economic damage here and there. But like you said, Wardick, so he hasn't been working with too much economy himself because he has always been anticipating that this attack is strong, that Clem is committed, and that he's gonna need units now to hold. But the problem is, you know, he keeps on barely holding, but also not holding in a way where it's like, okay, like I held, now I'm super far ahead because I have this economy to rely on. It's more like I held, but, you know, but where's the next wave? Now, finally, with this run by, 71 workers to 48, if we can see another holdout of Reynor, he should feel pretty comfortable in terms of economy for once.
Clem gets +2 armor finished up, but he's missing +2 attack still. Didn't start them in sync. Did a bit of a Beyond Star on that armor upgrade first, as it feels as though Reynor finally will kind of shut this down, push this back, reclaims this space. And of course, he's got a 5th base off to that right side. That's the one that's really mining as well. Now he's got 71 drones, 50 SCVs only from Clem. It just feels like this is the point at which Clem is in a lot of trouble as Ling's in this mineral line. You just can't afford to lose that many SCVs here. These medevacs feel completely stuck, trying to find a way into the main. Didn't happen, and now they're trying to find a way out, but losing their numbers as they go. At least a drop on the right side will try and get further damage done here as the Sling's still running by. And yeah, I mean, 3rd base burning. Reynor looking very good here on Curious Minds to start this series.
Yeah, it's going to be GG called from Clem as the momentum has been stopped. And the Italian Stallion will take map number 1. Just back and forth game there, or mostly just Clem attacking and Reynor defending there, right? But he did a good job over and over, and then it's through those link pokes that he manages to reduce the SCV count over and over again until he finally manages to get like 30 workers ahead by virtue of attacking more than actually ever making workers.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool, right? Just the whole idea of how he plays that out. He's like, okay, I'm under heavy pressure, but the best thing he can do under heavy pressure is disrupt his way to keep on applying that heavy pressure. And it leaves you in trouble for a while. He's playing this tense game where he barely has enough to hold on, so Clem sticks around for ages, but he knows eventually that army's not being reinforced, so eventually he just gets that full swell, swarms it, cleans it up. And even then it was close, and obviously so many of these TVs come down to the little, you know, micro wars, the efficiency costs. In this case, it did just come out into Reynor's favor, and especially just, I think, a few moments where big Balin hits on mineral lines probably decided that, because there's a couple of times where Clem just had no response or late response on the 3rd base, and you just, in a game that as close as that one, you can't afford to have all that SCVs dying. It's okay to run them away for 5 seconds and bring them back, but to lose 10 SCVs, that's difficult to replace because you just can't afford to replace them even sometimes.
Yeah, that was definitely a very chaotic game. I think it shows a lot of respect as well from each other to each other, because in the games that Clem played against Lambo, he played very similar styles, but he would never lean in on the aggression as much as here, where it did feel like he was pretty much like 3-base all-inning the entire game, right? Against Lambo, a lot of the time he had like a bunker to rely on. He had a tank as an anchor at his 3rd base, and then he was just poking, kind of like he did against Harstem earlier today in his TVP, like just poking, just pulling him apart little by little. I don't know if he can afford, or he thinks that he can afford to do it against Reynor, but yeah, the all-in approach definitely didn't work in the first game. In the top right-hand side, it is for Team Liquid, Clem.
In the bottom left, Red Zerg, of course, representing Kazi Gaming nowadays. This is Reynor. You know, Katz, you mentioned in the game, when you talked about the Banshees, it's very true. You said, yeah, I think that, you know, they haven't been that great, or they've been a bit of a failure. And you came back and you said, you know, I didn't mean they're a massive failure. And it was still true, because in the end, yeah, they weren't a massive failure. Were they disappointing? Yeah, whatever. You know, they didn't do mega damage. Do they need to? Not really. But it's one of those things where if they get like 5 workers, can you imagine the difference it makes? Because the game's so close back and forth that 5 workers here or there, eventually over the course of 3 or 4 minutes of scrapping out, that might have made the difference. It's a pack of Zerglings that then you're missing. That's one less run by, or that's one less actual, you know, set of units to clean up with. It's just that kind of knock-on effect, and that's the real power of the Banshees, being able to get there and get that damage done early to have the effect on the later stages of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that this game, it really comes down to inches. That's why the first dance that seems kind of insignificant from the SCV, keeping tab on the links, and then the Reaper being able to move out on the map, like things like that are so important between these two, because they are fighting for every little advantage. And, you know, like in a game of StarCraft, just like 2 units in a fight can completely sway the fight in one player advantage or the other, right? Like anyone can go in the unit tester and fight, say, I don't know, 30 of the same units against 31 of the same units and just have them clash against each other and see what happens, because at the end it's not one unit that remains. There's a snowball effect where, you know, like something like 10 of those units will remain or something like that, depending on the unit, obviously. But it is actually massive. It is a lot more than you would think. So yeah, these little things do matter. And here's the first dance of the game. It's going to be the Reaper trying to kill a Circling. Not going to be able to so far.
Nope, good micro back on the low HP ones. 3 of them are low, and that Reaper just has to turn around. It is starting to regen. There's the Creep Tumor going to go down. Nice read from Reynor, knowing that Reaper's coming back, looking for the Creep Tumor. Still hasn't placed it. Got a couple more shots off. There's no way that Reaper can get to the Creep Tumor now. And the Reaper has to just back it up. Checks the third hatchery still there. And yeah, okay, that's a defense initially here from Reynor, and Clem obviously still has the Reaper alive and can join that up with a couple of Hellions in the upcoming future.
Yeah, and it seems like he feels comfortable going back into this 3cc, and it is very possible that he opens with the Banshee yet again, as we have the starport on the way as well. So yeah, it seems like Clem is very comfortable in his early game approach here, and we'll see if he can just mix it up at all, or if he's gonna start breaking Reynor, right? And then we have Reynor searching for solutions, because at the moment, I mean, that makes me feel really good for Reynor, the fact that he won that first game in the fashion that he did, because that is kind of like Clem's go-to bread and butter.
Wonder how much Clem wants to do some early damage here, because he's pretty happy to try run those Hellions in last game on a map that's kind of Terran friendly. Now you're kind of talking about a bit more of a Zerg-friendly map. Are you thinking of running them in again? Yes, it really comes down to just if you believe that opening is there or not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, it was a little bit of a risk. It did okay, I want to say. In the main, it did force out that Evo Chamber and whatnot, but the first Hellion falls so fast that I felt like it should have done even less than it did. So maybe this time around, just keep the Hellions, control the creep. The creep was really good for Reynor last game as well. And he's doing a very good job this time around of pushing the Hellions out with the Queens to continue on creep spreading. 3 Queens on either side.
Yep, obviously just wants to make sure there's no open. He knows how dangerous Clem can be, and the moment you get in, a little bit fancy micro on the Hellions, get more done with them than you ever really should, and the next thing you know, boom, you lost way more drones, and way more drones in this case can be like 8, 9 drones than you're meant to. And it just snowballs from there, right? We're talking about games of inches, while 8 and 9 drones in a game like this would be a mile. So, yeah, definitely Reynor just with utmost caution. I always remember when Reynor went on that run where he won Katowice in the online era, and he just always said one of the best things about my TVZ was I was just so good in the first 5 minutes of the game. I never took damage. I never lost more drones than necessary. You know, 1, 2 drones at most went down, and that's what gave him just that lead into the mid game every time. And just an overall control in the series. And it's definitely something I know he's brought up at times as well when he hasn't been doing so hard in ZVT. He's like, just my early game's a little bit sloppy again. I mean, you look at the games right now and you'll say, well, it's pretty darn perfect at the moment. So it definitely feels like he's gotten some focus back on that once again.
1,000,000%. I mean, right now, for example, he's at 16, soon to be 18 links. That should be plenty. So he's scaling his links with the Terran potential scalability of the Hellions, right? And then he will probably make something happen when he feels the Hellions have retreated. But he is scaling those links little by little. So first he started with 4, and up until there was like 4 Hellions, he only made drones. And then he added, you know, a few more. Like, he added them in 3 steps, basically, as he feels the Terran Hellion army can scale. So he's basically accounting for what can happen, but not all at once. So he's not the type of player that says, okay, like, I'm going to have 18 links for the Hellions. Let's make 18 links. He's trying to sneak out drones all in between to be as efficient as possible in that process, right? So he has been safe this entire time, even though Clem hasn't attempted at anything, while still getting ahead, just by virtue of being Zerg and doing things right.
Yeah, it's a very systematic approach where it's like, oh, I need this many now, this many then, making sure you always have the right amount, but the bare minimum right amount as well. That's how you get ahead as Zerg, you know? You cut the corners as much as you can, but you still stay on the track, right? As
yeah,
4th CC goes down. So Clem this time around already setting up for just a much longer game. Yeah, he'll still probably be aggressive around that 1-1 finishing. I'm sure we'll see some pressure on the map. He has a couple medevacs already. But he is setting up to say, right, 2nd factory is down, 4th CC. I want to get a lot of mines out. I want to get into a nice strong eco. I want this to be a much drawn-out game. First mine goes down instantly here as we lift up. Widow Mine split is decent from Reynor, just lets the feelings go down, but Clem saves the Widow Mine. I feel like I've been seeing that a lot lately, just like a Widow Mine and burrowing and lifting after it's, you know, being attacked by a few lings. It's been pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are seeing these players just reach heights that are that seem so impossible. I think for us older players that you know, they're just doing things that they shouldn't be able to. Like right now, for example, Clem having to push out and using a scan to push just a little bit of creep. It really goes to show again, like just the attention to detail and the amount that it matters for Reynor to have those queens perfectly positioned earlier, right? Like those 3 queens guarding that creep actively and making sure that it's as forth as it is. Because that means that Clem, it's 8 minutes in, he's not able to push in as well as he would like to. But now finally he's gonna get the guts to, but actually a huge connection onto the Marines. I think they're all bruised up. They can't really re-engage here. Oh wow, yeah. I think
yelled, but yeah, I think he lifted a lot of them that should have been a lot more hurt than they were coming out of this medevac. That was a wild little moment. Obviously this is where Clem wants to get something done because he had the upgrade lead. Eventually now just has to lift up, back away. Got a bit of the creep spread here in the end. But, wow. It's crazy how quickly mines can swing a game as well, right? Because obviously one mine shot in the Zerg's favor, one mine shot in the Terran's favor. If that mine connects and those Marines all blow up, and it's as deadly as this with a mine. Ooh, off on the ling in the distance. Didn't even know how that reached over there.
Oh my, oh my. Now Hellbat's in the mix as well. Those are not very microable. Now Reynor venturing off of creep with Hydras as well. There's a drone in the mix. No real business being there. The mines are going to burrow at the front, but they're not going to connect onto anything before they get taken down. And now it's Reynor with an incredible early game. He took no damage virtually, and he is on the offense here on this, like you called it, it's a Sergier map. He is already 50 supply ahead, and Clem with a lot of work to do. Maybe this is where you have to take a step back, take a more Maru-like approach, and just start turtling yourself, because I don't know that you're going to be able to do much on offense.
I don't think you can do anything really on offense after that, right? I mean, that was brutal. I feel like Clem just didn't quite believe Reynor would step off creep. Why would you? You love your creep spread. There's no reason for you to jump off and attack right now, but I think that just caught Clem off guard, and the Balins got to crash in, and then Clem was obviously just trying to save the day in the moment, and obviously then the Widow Mines all get picked off because they're trying to burrow late. It's just kind of a snowball effect. All becomes disastrous, and now Reynor believes he's got enough to keep on going. One decent mine shot on the left side. On the right, though, it didn't do too much. Looks like Reynor doesn't believe he's got enough to go forward with just yet, but he's also moments away from a lurk den, so he doesn't need to go fighting in right now. Just wants to pick a couple fights here and there when he believes he can. Like this, just turns around on those few Marines, and it's an easy fight for him. So just continue to edge out little leads, and again, once those lurkers kick in, it's going to be tough for Clem to be prepared.
For sure. Adrenaline's on the way already, as the hive is already done. That means the lurkers will have access to their upgrades, and that is exactly what we see as soon as the lurker then finishes here on the side of Reynor. So yeah, right now Reynor doesn't need to be here. He is just here because he can, but he has to be a little bit careful as well and respect his opponent, as Clem is nearing that max supply as well, only 30 off. So, you know, he has to respect that. He has to back away. He has to reset and maybe look for some lurkers. Instead, he's going to try to pounce onto this army yet again. The Banelings all get taken down, actually, and this is a good trade seemingly for Clem. So yeah, again, I think Reynor kind of overreaching here a little bit.
And he's still got Hydras though, and as reinforcing lings get here, the Hives can just keep dishing out damage. I know they have no missile upgrade yet, but just being able to fire basically for free is nice. I think Reynor kind of believes he's got 98 drones. It's like, well, if I just keep streaming units in and trading well enough, I really believe he just wants to keep Clem busy enough. He doesn't get to ghost, and then boom, lurkers are here. No ghosts on the field. You're still stuck on Widow Mines. What kills the lurkers? Well, absolutely nothing. Seismic Spines is done. Adaptive Talons is well on the way. And these Widow Mines are just not connecting. The splits have been pretty much on point against every single one of them. There's only been one or two that have done okay, but here comes the drop, and kaboom, that's a full mineral line, or at least half of one, because the Overlord took the final hit. I wasn't expecting that, but that's a big moment for Clem, actually, because it's finally something against this economy of Reynor. Finally something that isn't just him being chased around on his half the map.
Yeah, for sure. And now Reynor is adding those lurkers that are going to be very difficult for Clem to contend with. 11 on the way. Clem did manage to drop the Ghost Academy while all that was going on. Actually, as you were mentioning it, you were like, oh yeah, he's trying to distract them not to do it, but Clem had the presence of mind still to find the way to drop that. But it's a little bit too late for those ghosts to really come onto the field in great numbers. So this is a ton of lurkers. This is an incredible timing for Reynor, and Reynor is one of a few. Oh no! But they get picked up, the Marines, in the last second. I mean, that could have been game ending, but it's still looking pretty dire as these lurkers are pretty much unaccounted for. There aren't any tanks, there are very few Marauders, and there is one Ghost out on the field.
Yeah, there's just no way. These lurkers are in great position already, right? And yeah, Clem's Ghost just are not here in time, and Reynor is going to keep running these lurkers forward. He's going to siege up on the front of the natural. He's got firepower over on the third base still, the fourth base, sorry. Third's on the low ground, obviously, in this game. GG says Clem, and Reynor is just going to put himself up 2-0. Man, he's looking pretty darn good, pretty confident in these games, if I gotta say so, right? It just feels good, looks good. Definitely feel like in this game, a lot of it as well is like, well, does Clem expect me to jump on his army here? No. And so he's playing the unexpected. He jumps on it, off creep. Usually that's not a great fight, but if Clem's not paying attention for a split second, Banes get too close, a lot of blowing up happens, army gets just reset a little bit, and it really felt like that one fight just set the momentum for the rest of the game. And those moments where it's like, oh, better fight from Clem, the Banelings aren't connecting, but even then he didn't have enough firepower to really push back the Hydras, and just Ling Hydra was standing and trading on its own accord.
No, and I think you're spot on as well. I think that Reynor was okay making those trades just to keep Clem busy, right? Because Clem didn't have that transition ready for the lurkers. So yeah, like I thought, okay, this is the first time that Reynor's not trading cost efficiently. This is the closest in supply that they're getting, so that must be decent trades for Clem. But at the same time, he's not. You're right. He's not advancing in tech. He's still making Widow Mines. He's not making tanks. He's not making Ghosts. He's not adding Marauders because he is being kept on his toes. So yeah, that was incredible from Reynor. I mean, that was a flawless game. He took 0 damage in the early game, and he got away with as much greed as he possibly could, right? Like, this is why he trains with like multiple people in the Archons and stuff like that, so that they can really stress test him. And yeah, I mean, it really freaking showed. Like, this is why like someone like Reynor can actually make fun of Dark when they make 6 Zerglings instead of 4, right? Because it actually matters, and because because he doesn't need 6 ever.
Yeah. And doesn't need 6. I mean, you're right. Even this first game, the Ling Micro was on point, right? The Lings stay alive initially. That's 4 Lings you don't have to replace potentially. And already that's just a couple more drones you have. And it just all piles up, those little things. What you got to play for. In the bottom right, looking for something, anything in this series right now. Our Blue Terran player from Team Liquid, this is Clem.
And in the top left-hand side, it is Reynor. But it looks like he forgot the Overlord, so I had to do an extractor trick. So talk about the little things. This is about as little as it gets, but usually not ideal.
Yeah, extractor trick. Oh, pull first. Maybe intentional then. Some kind of extractor trick's better when you pull first. You never know.
Yeah, maybe.
Someone probably did the math at some point.
Someone probably did. Yeah, my impression, like, I mean, when the game first came out in Wings of Liberty, right? Like, all the Koreans, all the Kespa players would always do the extractor trick because that was the thing to do in Brood War. When the game came out, I was extractor tricking every game, right? And then we started doing the maths, and I mean, for the last many years, like, pretty much no one ever extractor tricks anymore. Yeah,
it's funny because I was actually casting like a couple of Wings of Liberty games the other day, and I was saying, like, actually, like, back in the day, extractor tricking was a thing. Because it's just what people did. But actually, especially with Legacy of the Void, it 100% wasn't worthwhile. And then back in the day, it was like 50-50. Like, it didn't really matter if you did or you didn't. So for a lot of people, it was just a force of habit. I just thought it was funny because we played a couple of Wings of Liberty games in the Zerg. Just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to extract a trick a few times. It's like, just for the good old days. Why not?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, for sure. All of the Kespa Koreans, basically, or a lot of them in the early games, in the early days, with extractor trick as well. It's just, it just made sense in Brood War, so you assume that it's going to carry over, but it didn't. Yeah.
Yep. That's Reaper just going to hop out, by the way, and start to move out to the middle here. So just looking to see what's going on again. Clem has had that SCV spotting, but yep, there's actually a few Lings this time. So the Reaper's going across the map. There's a few Lings that have made their way around, and this could be a pretty sizable delay, as Reynor is really waiting. He doesn't quite believe the Reaper is there. Now he's going to see, or maybe he doesn't, not that he doesn't quite believe it, but he wants for it to be as far away as possible. And geez, I'd say he's going to be in trouble. This Reaper is like deep in this base. And this is 8 Lings as well. I mean, that's potentially, I was going to say maybe a dead reactor. He's going to go to the low ground instead, though.
Yeah, I mean, you can delay the CC for a very long time. He's gonna be forced to pull a lot of SCVs. That's a lot of mining lost time.
Marine
the
side.
Marine is gonna fall, exposed at the front, and this is awful.
man.
5 workers make it 6. The Reaper now pulls back, but you might as well call it Wardy. This isn't gonna be near impossible for Clem to recover against any competent Zerg, never mind Reynor.
Clem knows it as well. He's just gonna straight up type GG.